Our saying is in peace and war. We're always involved. We're always active. In peace times and in war times, we're always involved. It's very good money. Like in military SEAL command right now, they were paying $70,000 bonus just to join. We go into these places with a lot of times with no military escort. Military can't be everywhere, and we have no way to protect ourselves whatsoever.
All right. Hey, Dean Schrantz, welcome back to Tales from the Shift Overtime. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Good to be back.
I'm so glad to have you back on here, man. I know you got a lot of stories, more to tell, and that's why we brought you back on. Plus, of course, all the crap that's going on in the world with affecting shipping. So just wanted to hear your opinion on different things. I guess let's just start this off. Hopefully you're locked and loaded with maybe a story you could tell us from being a sailor that you didn't tell us on the show last time. You got anything?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have two very different types of stories. One is a story I heard from someone else, a very experienced sailor. They were on a ship, and it was actually during Hurricane Sandy. And they had to go from New York to Puerto Rico. And the captain, who was a very company man, insisted that they sail through the hurricane. They insisted on it. Everyone else was like, no, this isn't good. Multiple people quit on the spot. They just felt very unsafe. Let it be known, they made it about halfway, had to turn around and go back because the hurricane was so bad. Luckily, they did, because once they got into port, they found out that the hull of the ship cracked in half. And if they kept going, the ship would have cracked completely in half, and they would have sunk to the bottom of the ocean. I knew a guy who was on that ship, and he said he was so happy that he walked off that ship because he heard from a friend of his that they had to turn right back around, and they almost went to the bottom of the ocean, which is
That is bananas.
unbelievable. Unbelievable.
What kind of ship was it?
It was a container ship.
Okay. All right. So
The big crack in the hull, and that's dangerous, beyond dangerous.
I just can't imagine with the levels of winds. I mean, you tell us what if you have a crosswind in a container ship that's multiple stories high. I mean, how many knots of wind is too much where you
I
start
mean,
to not be able to
realistically,
control it?
you shouldn't even be remotely thinking about going to a hurricane at all, especially in a container ship. How tall they are and how oddly shaped they are, you're going to be losing containers left and right at best. At worst, you can capsize and the ship will be in the sea. So even thinking about going into a hurricane is just bad leadership on that captain. And sometimes these captains forget that their number one responsibility is the safety of the crew. For beyond the company's job, beyond the ship's job, their number one responsibility is the responsibility of protecting the crew at any circumstance. So he must have forgot and said, I want to make this bonus this year. Let me get the cargo where it needs to be. Let's forget about the crew, because he almost lost the lives of all crew members on board that ship.
So, well, did anything happen to the captain?
Yeah, he got fired.
Okay.
He got
All right.
immediately fired. The second he got back to that port, they said, you're out of here. Even though he thought he was making the right choice for the company, he wasn't. He wasn't. He was risking so many.
So, yeah. So, I mean, a cracked hull, is the ship repairable or is it done for? Like,
I think
scrap?
that ship was repaired and it was good to go. The amazing things they do in these shipyards when they dry dock the ships, they bring them on above water. The amazing things they do to these ships to bring them back to brand new. I was just in the shipyard for 4 months, basically, repairing my entire ship. And it's a hell of a lot of work, but once you're done, it looks like that ship was just reborn. It's an amazing sight. All new paint, new steel. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what I was asking about before was the maximum amount of wind that a container ship can handle. Let's say you're not going to go into a hurricane. Let's say you're near a storm. Like, what would you need to start worrying at? What level?
I'll be honest, I don't exactly know the number. It's luckily something that's good about the merchant marine in general is they tend to, and I say tend to because of that story being a bad example, the mates, the officers, the captain, they tend to avoid bad weather entirely. They'll either put the anchor down and wait it out, they will avoid it entirely and change route, they'll go into port. They don't want to risk. I bet the number that the wind is at for their safety is way lower than it can actually take, is they just don't want to risk it. Those are all Coast Guard regulations that they have to follow. So it's, I don't know the exact number, but I'm glad that they play it safe and drop the anchor or go to port because it gets risky out there. Even in those car carriers, they flip all the time. They'll be making a wrong turn, they'll flip. You see how weirdly shaped they are? It looks like a giant box floating on the ocean, so that can get blown over.
What's the worst storm you've experienced?
It was to the point where one, you couldn't go on deck at all. They just wouldn't allow you, which is good. It's good, safe practice by the captain to not let crew members out on board in certain weather conditions because the waves are coming on to the ship. You have wind blowing all the deck equipment around, and so you have to stay inside. And during that, things are flying all over the place inside the house. You're trying to eat, your plate goes flying off your table, you're rolling all out of your bed. It's definitely interesting. The weather gets rough, the seas get rough, but like I said, the officers, the captains, they usually tend to try to avoid it. Nowadays, with NOAA navigation and everything with the Coast Guard, we get notified on any type of bad weather upcoming, and it's usually the second mate's job to pre-plan all the weather and the route that we have to take to make sure we're in the safest possible route to get from point A to point B.
Yeah, cool. So you said water coming up on the deck. I'm trying to figure how big of a ship was it that water was getting on the deck? How high above the water would it have been?
This is a heavy, fully loaded tanker. Waves are coming right on in really bad weather. Not normally, but really bad weather. Waves are coming up on the bow. We're crashing through these waves. It's maybe like from on top of the bow, it was only a 2 stories up in the air off the surface level. So these waves the ship's coming in like this, waves are coming in like this. It's just going right onto the bow. And then the ship I'm on currently with the dredge, we're so oftenly loaded so low to the surface of the water that we're constantly taking on waves from either side, port and side of the ship constantly. And it's not a big deal.
So then with a dredge, that's kind of standard operating procedure. Like it's pretty common
Yeah.
for.
We
Okay.
fill up multiple times a day. And every time we fill up, we're only a few feet above surface level. So there doesn't even need to be a wave and the water's coming on deck.
So do you not go on the deck when that's
Oh, we
going on?
still
'Cause
have
it
to
sounds
go
like
on
it's pretty
deck.
common.
We still
Okay. Do you
gotta go
like
on deck.
do you tie off do you tie yourself off to things or how does that
We
work
time
so
it
you're not.
properly. So we have to check under these drag heads, which are like these big vacuums that suck under on the bottom of the seafloor and they drag and they suck up all the material on the bottom and then it gets put into the surface, the middle of the dredge. So when they get pulled out, we have to go under there, make sure there's no debris, clean it out, get all the trash out of there. And we have to time it properly. So we're looking under, cleaning it before we get out far enough away from land to where the waves get big and we start getting lots. I've gotten hit in the chest by waves before. Just standing on the back deck waiting for the crew boat to come, and I turn away for a second, and I turn back, and I'm like, "Oh god!" And it just comes and slams me right in the middle of my chest, and I'm on the deck of the ship. So these
Man,
waves get pretty big.
let's suppose there's no water coming on deck. So, but the sea, you know, it can be a little choppy. If you're on a container ship and you're on deck, and you have to go from say point A to point B. How do you safely do that? You know, with the movement and what have you. Is there a way to do it, or what? What do you
So
do?
it sounds, it sounds, I guess, kind of crazy. We just simply have these painted pads along the deck to walk across because there's only so much room when it comes to walking. Around through these containers, through the ships. It's not like we have a flat, big open deck. There's usually cargo or opening hatches or whatever in the way. So, and our walkways are usually on the railings. They're usually on the edges of the vessel. So we have to just be mindful of it. We're never strapped in, just casually walking around, being mindful. And if it gets too rough, like I said, the captain just won't let us out on deck just to be safe. It's all about the safety.
So when we see a big cargo ship, with the stacked containers,
Mm.
you're saying there's no walkways in the middle of that. It's just you're just
Most
going around that big stack.
most of the time when they're fully
Okay,
stacked, you are walking around. Sometimes there may be some pads in between the containers, but those are rare. They want to pack as many containers on a ship as possible.
sure. Have you seen anything fall? Any of these containers ever fall down, or
Yeah, I've never
is it
seen
pretty solid?
containers fall off a ship. That's usually pretty rough out there. But I haven't sailed on many container ships. Mainly ro-ros, cable ships. I've sailed on container ships, but not enough to have enough experience to say I've seen containers. I know many guys who have seen containers fall off the ships, and I've seen many things on the ship that just gets washed away by a wave. A rogue wave comes and takes a ladder right off the deck, or some material we have laying around, some tools just gets swiped off to the ocean. You're like, all right, that's it for that last ladder. See you later.
I was gonna say, I hope you got backups of all these
Yeah,
items.
there have been many times where the last of something got washed away, and we're like, damn.
So when you were on the show before, you talked about that green flash that some older sailors have seen with the sunrise, sunset kind of a situation. Are there other things that you've heard from older sailors that you may have not have seen that they claim to have seen also?
Well,
Any other weird things?
I mean, you always hear the really old guys who claim that they've seen something in the water. They're like, oh, it's a mermaid, it's a whatever. And I'm like, you hear the stories like that, of course, and those are always interesting to see because some of these guys have been in the water their entire lives. So you don't know if they're losing it or if they're seeing something that most people don't see. You never know, but you hear these stories about what people see in the water, people see in the sky. A lot of people surprisingly say they see some type of UFO in the sky because you're in the middle of the ocean, pitch black, nothing is around you. You see something in the sky. Like I've seen shooting stars for hours basically at night. Just watch
Yeah.
like 20 shooting
Yeah.
stars going by. So these guys are claiming to see UFOs, claiming to see mermaids. I believe it if you want to. That's just what I've heard.
I, I mean, I've personally seen UFOs. As an air traffic control, I've had pilots tell me they're seeing them, like
Right.
while I'm working those airplanes. So I know there's crap flying around. We don't know what the hell's going on with necessarily. Um, but the mermaid thing, I don't know. It makes me wonder. I mean, surely if someone's saying the story, then they know they sound crazy. So I you don't believe them. It sounds like though the mermaid thing.
It's you I wish you could see the people that are telling me sometimes. That's all I'm gonna say there. You're like, okay, buddy. Like in the middle of cleaning a toilet, he's telling me about the mermaids. Like, okay. you know? Like that kind of thing.
That's
It's
hilarious.
interesting.
All
Yeah.
right. So anything besides mermaids and UFOs that people have said
No,
they've experienced?
nothing I can think of off the top of my head when it comes to reality wise. It's all just beautiful sights, lightning hitting the water, like going through the rainbows, like I've mentioned before, shooting stars, that green light. It's normal things that you can see, like the aurora lights and all those things like that. It's just beautiful sights that you see naturally. We get to see them in a place where a lot of people don't, in the middle of the ocean.
So I was just reading online about this Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Have you seen a lot of trash out in the middle of the ocean?
I've been blessed with not seeing that specifically, and I haven't seen much trash. I mentioned it before when I was in Haiti. I felt sick because there was so much trash in the bay of Port-au-Prince. But luckily, beyond that, I've been in the Caribbean, across the Atlantic. I've been all over the place, and I've been in nice, beautiful, clear blue ocean water. no complaints from me there. I have not seen that island of trash, and I'm very thankful of it because I do not like the idea of trash in the ocean.
Yeah. Well, I was just looking at a map of it. I mean, it looks like it's bigger, like California plus Nevada plus Arizona, basically in size. It looked like I'm on a map now.
Yeah, it's insane. It's not okay.
And then, before you also talked about seeing tons of dolphins, uh, going along with the ship and what have you. Have you seen other types of sea creatures out there, like orcas or any of that stuff?
I've seen different kinds of whales. I'm not too familiar by name, but I've seen multiple whales. I've actually seen um, some type of weird squids and jellyfish that I've never seen before. Is very interesting. But whales are always a sight that you almost feel like this is kind of magical when you see them. Because you're like, wow, it's just beautiful to see. One crazy one that I see. We happened to cross it when we were going to Florida one time through the Gulf. It was huge, tons of pods of whales during their mating season. And you would just see bunches, like tons of groups of whales just face to face, just not moving. We were like, are these whales okay? Are they dead? And we were like, there were like tons of groups of them just looking at it, like face to face touching. And they just were laying there while floating there. And it was like very
Yeah.
interesting to see. It was kind of magical. It was very strange. It's like I don't know how many people have seen something like that. Just tons of whales just grouped together, just floating there as we slowly drift past them.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, that's
very
pretty
interesting.
cool. So last time you were on here, you talked about some people getting their credentials really fast, so not really being trained properly before they go on a ship. Is there anything you ever see happen as a result of that? As someone doing anything dangerous as a result of not being credentialed properly?
It's just lack of common knowledge in the maritime industry can cause a lot of issues. Dealing with lines, people don't know where to put their hands properly. They get their hands crushed, hands broken, fingers cut off, things like that. Lots of times, just lack of discipline too. A lot of the times, when it comes to the simplicity of knowing what, like the chain of command and everything is on a ship, a lot of people who are just off the street and don't respect it come in there and think they can run the show and everything, and then just get fired. There's a chain of command. Even if you're first time on a ship and you're 45 years old and there's a 22-year-old officer, you have to listen to that 22-year-old officer because that's a chain of command. That's You have to respect that no matter how old you are. A ship is run in a military type way to where there is a chain of command. The captain is the captain. What he or she says is the end of the game for you. So lots of people just don't respect the chain of command, and the lack of knowledge and the skills required comes in a lot of bad ways. A lot of people get hurt. A lot of people get stuck in pretty dangerous situations.
Do you have all your fingers
Yeah.
still?
Yeah, I got all my fingers. I've been pretty blessed with that too.
I hope it stays that way. Okay. All right. Well, news. Obviously, this whole thing with the Strait of Hormuz, the Bab-el-Mandeb. Have you been over there in anywhere near those areas before on
No,
a
I
ship?
actually have not been down there before.
Okay.
But I
All right.
know plenty of people have been there. I know someone who's there as we speak. So it's interesting what's going on. It's
Okay.
crazy.
Okay. So, this is a picture of the strait recently. So you can see all the ships. The white portion is the water, right? And so
Mhm.
they're all in these big bunches. What do you think they're doing there? I mean,
Lots of them are anchored out, just waiting for something to happen, waiting to be able to go through it.
yeah, so we talked about before, like you said you could end up on let's say a 120-day um, detail, and then it turns into 180 or whatever. So I'm guessing that's what's happening to these
Oh
gentlemen
yeah.
here.
I've been on ships that this has happened before where something has happened and you have to go to anchor and you have to wait until whatever is happening is over. A lot of those ships are doing just that. They were told to go through there and deliver their cargo or pick up their cargo, and they are now having to just sit there and wait at anchor until something changes, until maybe they won't get attacked, maybe they'll be whatever is stopping them. Whenever that ends is the only time they'll be able to go.
Right. So if you were in a situation like that, I mean, what are you doing with your time? What would you do in a,
So
a cargo
it's
ship or a
in this kind of situation, this is probably a little different. They're probably not letting them as freely walk around on deck. They might be in a
really?
technically they could be in a war zone. They might not be. They might be playing it safe. But on a normal situation, I'm just gonna assume that they're having a normal anchorage time, and they're just sitting there doing anchor checks, doing maintenance, making sure everything's maintenance on the engine, maintenance on the deck, chipping the paint, cleaning, just the whatever can get done in that time, just trying to knock it out. You're like, oh, we're behind on this task. Let's just get ahead of it. There's really not too much you can do on a cargo ship when it comes to, besides delivering the cargo, you are just catching up on maintenance. That's all you can do.
Okay. I see. I found an image of these folks sitting here. So clearly, it looks like they tied up their ships together and created
Yeah,
some sort of flotilla city, I suppose, where they're hanging out.
that's interesting. That's really interesting. I wonder if because I know sometimes I haven't seen that specifically, unless they don't look like they're any type of tanker.
I think I think
Yeah, those
they're fishing ships, maybe
they might be
like a little
fishing
smaller.
ships, trawlers, all tied up. I mean, you ain't. They're probably not having any luck trawling out there. I'll tell you that right now. So they might just be they literally might just be hanging out. They might be sharing supplies with each other. They might not be able to go back into their port anytime soon. So they're sadly, it's just survival at a certain point when you're out there. You don't want to run out of supplies. You don't want to be stuck out there. You got to play it safe in a time like this and a place like that. It really is. That's something that a lot of people don't realize, and I tell them a lot. Is the maritime industry, the merchant marine, are involved in every war. Our saying is in peace and war. We're always involved. We're always active in peace times and in war times. We're always involved. So people got to realize that when they're thinking about this job.
This image was taken from the Bab-el-Mandeb Strait. I don't know if you have any opinion on it, but clearly there's a guy going around with a gun
Yeah,
protecting the area. I don't know if he's uh which country he represents.
yeah,
Might be Houthi.
mm, yeah. It's not. The sea is an interesting place because when you're out there and say you're not protected by a military, you are just a target. That's it. You are a merchant ship. You are just a target. Like, they're constantly being attacked because they're just supplies for another country like that, right there.
Yeah,
You just never know.
yeah,
You never know, really. Yeah.
right.
It's
And
crazy.
so if these gentlemen came across your ship, you would try to do the water guns. You said the water.
Yeah, we're
Let's
gonna
say,
try to shoot them with a fucking hose. That's what we're gonna do. It's
yeah,
unbelievable. I kind of feel that's something I feel strongly about, and I know a lot of people are against it. But the fact that merchant ships, we go into these places with a lot of times with no military escort. Military can't be everywhere. Um, and we have no way to protect ourselves whatsoever. So we end up getting into a situation like this where we have precious cargo, but we have no way to protect it, and it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild.
yeah. Well, I mean, he definitely affected me when you told me about World War II and what have you. That I mean, you have more merchant marines dying than regular soldiers. Like that's some pretty crazy shit.
Yep, that's how do you win a war? Is you cut off the supply chain. So that's how you would cut off the supplies. All the American soldiers over in Europe, we'd be sending them supplies from the States, and you would target. Germans had their submarines. They'd blow the ships down into the water. So, in peace and war, we're always involved.
So you are a member of the Merchant Marine. Have they put out any particular guidance for ships that are going over towards the Middle East right now, as far as procedures you guys should be following, or
When
vaya con Dios? I mean,
Yeah. when it comes to those contracts, you take them as you know. Like you should always keep up with the news in the merchant marine because shit like this happens. And you see those jobs. A lot of people don't take those jobs because they don't want to go into dangerous war zones right now. It's you got to be aware of what's going on. I know people who have been on ships that have been hit before, you know, shot at before, and all the above. It gets dangerous out there because you're delivering important cargo that other countries don't want that country to have. So they're going to shoot it. There's only so much you can do. You're sitting on a metal box delivering something important. There's only so much you can do. You're just trying to do your job and someone doesn't want you to do your job. So it can be very dangerous.
Yeah. And for those contracts currently, is there any extra money for people that take those contracts?
I know someone right now who is working in right over there in a war zone. You get war zone pay on top of your normal pay. So you're making very, very good money. But like I said, it's dangerous. They're working on a tanker and they are going in and fueling the Navy ships because the Navy ships have nowhere to go for fuel. So you have to be a tanker to go link up next to them and fuel them up. And then you would go, the tanker would go fuel up at port again and then bring them back and forth to the Navy ships and keep refueling them. Yeah, it's you get that war zone pay on top of it, and it can be pretty. Just think about that. If I was the enemy and I knew this ship was fueling my enemy's military ships, I'm going to take out that tanker. It's just logic. I'm going to take out that tanker. Why take out the giant Navy ship that can fight back when I can just take out that little tanker that can't fight back? And then that Navy ship doesn't have fuel anymore. It's,
Good
and that's
point.
why the merchant
Yeah.
marine is constantly targeted.
How much is how much extra is the war zone pay bonus?
It really so every contract is different. Every ship, like if you sign a contract, you get a specific pay, you get a specific bonus, you get a specific war time pay, and every job on the ship is different. So if you're an officer, you're getting paid more for being there, even in your wartime pay, than it would be for someone who was unlicensed. It's good money. It's very good money. Like in military SEAL command right now, they were paying for my position just to join. They had a $70,000 bonus just to join. And that's $70,000.
Wait for one contract?
It's
You're
one.
saying?
So you would do just for joining the company, the military SEAL command. They do things a little different. It's more
Oh, I see what you're saying.
they work directly for the Navy and you work for that company. And I think it's a 3-year contract. Just for joining, you get $70,000. And then their pay is significantly higher because they get penalty pay, war zone pay, dealing with weaponry pay. They're making well, well amounts of money over there. But you'll be
Wait,
out for long times in military war zones.
yeah, when you said dealing with weapons, so those ships have weapons then that you are
Those
trained
ships
on?
don't have weapons, but they're delivering ammunition and weapons. So they're not for use, but they deliver them. So they have tons of boxes of ammunition, which is considered dangerous cargo. And they have to deliver that to the military. And you get paid for delivering dangerous cargo.
Hey, quick time out. I just want to say that if you'd like to come on the show, email me at talesfromtheshiftpodcast@gmail.com. We'll talk about your shift. I know before you said you're on ships with a lot of people who don't necessarily speak English very well, or maybe they're foreigners. So can you have a foreign person, not an American?
They have to be an American. So these are
Okay.
American citizens, but they're not originally, they're, say, from Honduras originally, but they are an American citizen. Work on a U.S. American flagged ship.
Okay. And so we can clarify for anybody watching. So the Jones Act says that a ship must be an American flagged ship under what circumstances? What are the circumstances to go into an American port?
It needs to always go back and forth. Say if it goes overseas, it needs to always come back to America. From America to America. Always. It can go from America to Europe and then back to America. That's considered an American ship. And an American ship, a U.S. flagged ship, needs to be crewed by U.S. citizens. That's what really
Okay.
the basis of what the Jones Act is just securing US companies to be worked for by US citizens. It protects us in a way because these companies, like any other company, would like to save money and hire, say, in the Philippines, a lot of those ships pay their members not nearly as good as American ships pay their sailors. So, what a lot of times they do is they would hire foreigners and would pay them significantly less money for the same job.
Okay, I know that there's different types of oil. You've got the sweet crude and you've got other oils. I don't know. So I guess my question for you is when it comes to that being your cargo, does it affect how you handle the cargo in any way? The way it's cleaned, anything like that? Where you
All
can go with it?
all I know for a fact is you have to clean out the tanks, and that's a long process. Specifics when it comes to it, I never really knew anything too deep into it. I wasn't an officer, not an officer, so they don't even know the real specifics of it. They just know they have to clean it to make sure nothing gets effed up in there. It's all got to be very clean, very neat.
Okay. And so you're not an officer. Could you become an officer? Do you want to be an officer? Will you ever be an
I
officer?
think I'm
What do
going
you think about that?
I think I'm going to become an officer once I get enough sea time and I take my tests and everything. I will become an officer in the merchant marine.
Yeah. So the process there, so you're saying more sea time and a test? That's it?
And you take your tests, multiple tests, lots of studying, lots of tests, and these are the same tests that someone would take after they finish their 4 years at a maritime merchant marine academy. You do your time, you take the same tests. These are all U.S. Coast Guard approved test taking, and you get your license to be an officer in the merchant marine, which is a very good job.
And so maybe you'll be a ship captain at some point, right?
Maybe we'll see. It seems to be a lot of paperwork nowadays, so I don't know if it's as interesting. A lot of people stay mates because it's a lot more fun.
The second in command, or you said you're the navigator. You said that person was a really
Second,
you. It seemed like you liked that job the most when you described it.
yes,
I guess.
100%. If I would work my way up, I'd probably stop at a second mate. That seems like the best job
Okay.
in my opinion.
When I rewatched the video and you were talking about the second mate, when they're not calculating navigation, I can't imagine they spend 8 hours a day doing that. What else is that person doing?
So they have their watch standing schedules and they're always standing watch. When it comes to watch standing, it can be long hours of doing nothing. You're just up on the bridge making sure, and that's good though. You want nothing to be happening. You're there to make sure nothing bad happens. That's your whole job. You get paid for the responsibility, not the exact task. So you're up on this bridge and you might be staring at a window for 8 hours straight, but that's a good night because if something goes wrong, something breaks, if you're off route, if you hit land, any of these things can be very bad and you can lose your license. You want to make sure everything is running smoothly. You're on the route, you adjust to traffic, you move the ship around, make sure you don't run into any ships. You're just being aware of your surroundings. It's just like a long truck drive. The truck driver is just driving the truck at the end of the day. That's what the officers do. They're just driving the ship. They're making sure everything is going smoothly. And when it does go badly, they have to be able to deal with it as well.
So ships have a thing like aircraft do, a traffic alert avoidance system, a beacon code system, or something like that. So you generally know when you're coming near other ships, right?
Of course. Of course.
Or or do you run into them out there that are running dark that they don't have
Well,
anything?
that can happen as well. That can happen as well. That's why
Okay.
you have someone like me along with the mate to be a watchstander, someone who is physically looking out the window at all times because there are things that don't pop up on the radar or anything like that, and you have to be visibly able to see and keep your eyes open for things like that. That's why you always have an officer and an AB on the bridge, making sure the ship is going where it needs to go and everything is okay.
Have you ever been in a location where there's icebergs that you have to watch for?
Yeah, when I was up in Newfoundland in Canada, we had a guy come on board who was a professional iceberg guy. I don't know if that was his title, but that's what I call him. Professional iceberg guy. And he basically ran us through a whole class on different types of icebergs, what to look out for, everything like that, just to make sure everyone's aware of what could go. Because iceberg, as we all know, it can be very dangerous for a ship. So I was out there up on the bridge watching out for icebergs for 8 hours a day. It was nothing too crazy, nothing new. I'm usually looking out for stuff anyway, but I always had to keep out. They're looking for this little white thing sticking out of the water because it could be huge underneath. It can only be tipping out of the water for this tiny bit, so you have to watch out for that. And they can blend in with the simplest wave on the ocean.
You don't have some sort of type of radar system to
If it's big
look
enough,
ahead?
if it's big enough, it'll pick something up. But lots of times things go under the radar, and you got to keep your eyes on it.
Yeah. And you may not have an opinion on this next question, but the Titanic, was it, you think it was the iceberg or do you think it was the engine fire?
Just because we're talking about icebergs, I'll go with icebergs. It really, those two things are the worst case scenario. Like an engine fire is horrible case scenario for any ship. Fires on ships are always bad. But ice and fire, yeah, that's two shitty situations to be on when it comes to a ship.
Yeah. Yeah. I just find it interesting that they departed with the engine fire.
Yeah.
We're leaving.
Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy.
Okay. So when you're out on a ship and you're far away, do you have any connection to the internet? Any way to talk to your family? Wi-Fi, any of that stuff?
I've ran into many ships with many different systems. Some ships that I've been on have limited data that you can use. So you can only have a certain amount of data per day you can use for the whole ship. So I'd be able to get like one phone call a day or a couple text messages a day or something along those lines. Then I've been on ships that use Starlink and I would be able to, it's like I'm at home. Then I'd be other ships where they would go dark and you would have nothing because you'd be doing a military operation and you wouldn't be able to use your phone at all. And it'd be 20 something days without using your phone. And you'd just be like, damn, I read a lot of books in that time. It's one of those things. I've actually been in a funny situation where it was a limited data ship and the captain really liked to play video games. And he pulled in a whole full crew meeting. It was like, hey guys, we got to slow down with this data because I got to play my video games at night. So you guys need to back off a little bit so I can enjoy my games at night. Basically what he said. And I was like, this guy's got some balls on him for even mentioning
The
that.
jag off. So essentially, I want your data for me is basically is what he's saying.
Basically what he told us without saying it directly. He was like, you guys need to back off a little bit. My PlayStation's starting to not work, is what he was saying. It's like, wow, you can play games offline, but I guess
I'm just surprised he came out and said it. I mean,
Yeah,
I would imagine he'd just come up with some other excuse like, "Oh, we're out of data. You guys need to chill," as opposed to, "I need the game." So
no one's gonna question him. No one's gonna say anything. He's the captain. It's gonna be like, okay, bud, what can you do? I'll just go sit in
did
my room.
people use more data after that?
I hope
Did
so.
people say?
I hope so. I was like, you dick.
What an asshole. All right. So then the longest time you went without talking to your family was about 20 days then?
Yeah,
That
I'd
was
say
the
so.
longest.
It was on a cable ship. You go out to sea. It was go dark and doing a military operation, and it was completely black, no phones, no nothing until the operation is over, and then you can bring it back. And I think it was like 20 something days. Um,
And
until
that's
all
expected. So
yeah,
before you leave, you tell your wife, "Hey, listen,
yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
gonna be able to talk for a certain amount of days." Okay.
yeah. I avoid those ships now because I don't want to deal with that anymore. I can't go black anymore. I have to be able to talk to my kids. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. How old are they?
I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, so I ain't missing
Oh
out
my
on.
goodness. No, hell no. Those are the good ages, man.
Yeah.
So imagine you come into port, you've got your load of whatever. How often do you even get to leave that port setting and go about and do something, or is it being most of the time, is it just loading and unloading and, "Well, this looks cool," and then you're gone?
It really so you get a lot of mixed stories from that. A lot of ships are different, a lot of cargo is different. I've been very lucky to where I would be in port for days, always. I would always go into port and be like, "Yeah, we have 3, 4 days here." I'm like, "Sweet." I went to, all over England, I went all over London before, I've been all over Canada. I spent the whole day driving around, spent overnight in a rental car in Canada. I've been down in the Caribbean, Spain, Italy for days. And I've been very lucky to where it's just on your off time, you get to go out and explore, and then you come back when you're ready to work. You miss out on a lot of sleep. Like there'd be days when I would just wouldn't sleep at all, and I would just work for 12 hours, go out for 8 hours, and then work for 12 hours like straight. So it was just a sacrifice, but it was worth it because I got to go out and enjoy a time and maybe go to a place that I might never go to again. But you'll hear stories about people who, like a lot of these coastwise running up and down the East Coast tankers, they'll be in and out of port in hours, not even days. A lot of container ships are like that now. It's in and out. They don't want to waste that time of that money. They want to get the cargo in and out. So I've never been on a ship like that to where it was such fast turnaround. I wouldn't enjoy it as much, but I've stepped away from the deep sea life. I'm on a dredge. We don't go to port at all now on the dredge. Rarely. Once or twice a year we go to port. So we're just out at sea. I do a month on, month off, so it's not that crazy for me anymore. But 28 days straight, every time I'm on that ship, I'm out on the water.
And when you say out at sea, I mean, in view of land, or far enough
The
out where
dredge, yeah, you're
this is
always in view of land on a dredge because you're actively close in these channels trying to move and make them deeper so other ships can go through them, or you're getting more sand for the beaches. Those are the two jobs you do on a dredge. You're either replenishing the
Oh, that's where it
beach.
comes from.
Yeah. Yeah, you're either replenishing the beach or you're digging the shipping channel so these big ships can make it through. Two jobs you do on a
Okay.
dredge.
Yeah. So when you had the extra time off when you were at other ports not doing dredge, you're saying that you had extra time because that's how long basically it was taking for them to load up these ships and get them prepared to leave?
Yep. Yep, I'd be on a container ship or a car carrier, and they would have 13 decks of cars. Or lots of times it was 13 decks of military cargo, tanks. Tanks aren't moving very fast. So you get plenty of time to go out, enjoy yourself on your off time. When it comes to these little cars, it goes quicker because these longshoremen are flying up and down through this car, through the ship. They're zooming, parking it, getting another one, zooming, parking it. So it goes a lot quicker. Or like you would spend average 3, 4 days in a port. In cable ships, you might spend 2 weeks filling the ship up with cable because you're going to be out at sea for a long time. So it takes a long time to supply it. It's it's nice. It's nice being able to get to enjoy the world as a job. That was a really big selling point for me was being able to go out there on a ship and explore these countries a little bit while you're getting paid to do it.
Yeah. It sounds like a incredible selling point. I completely agree. 100%. When you go home and you've been on a ship for whatever, long time, and it has these sounds, hums, whatever, is it and movement. Does it feel strange to be back in your home, in your bed?
Yes.
Have trouble sleeping in any way, or
I'll tell you right now, and this might sound absolutely insane, I sleep better on a ship. Always. Always I sleep better on my ship. The hum and the slight vibration you get puts me out in seconds. I come home on it's too quiet, it's too still. I just can't I get to sleep. I get back in my routine when I'm here, but I sleep so deep when I'm out at sea. It's almost I'm jealous of myself when I'm out there. I'm like, man, I would do anything to be able to sleep that hard when I'm home. It's just so relaxing. It's so nice. It's like everything you'd want out of a sleep, you get it while you're on a ship. And a lot of people probably would disagree with me, but I love it.
so when you get off of the ship, do you feel any movement? Like, do you feel like your body has a movement to it?
So not
That's
anymore. But when I
okay.
first started sailing, I would do months away at a time. And I would come home and I felt like you would feel a little off balance. You would feel almost like you were still on something that was moving. My legs, my mind, my body has adjusted to it after years of sailing. I come home and it doesn't even phase me anymore. But at the beginning, I was almost like, wow, my head feels like I'm almost spinning when I'm trying to sleep.
Interesting. Yeah, I once had to move this airplane. It was Cessna, whatever, and I had to take it from northern Colorado all the way to Arizona, and so I flew like 8 hours in that damn thing one day, and it's bouncing all over the place. And
Mhm.
I that night was sweating, like I had the sweats because I felt like I was just the whole night. I felt like I was moving in
Yeah.
my bed, like I was at verge of puking or something.
Yeah, that's exactly how I was the first time I ever got off a ship. It's weird.
So you get home. What's the first thing that you want to eat when you get there? You ever
It's I'm a huge pasta guy. I'm a huge pasta guy, and for some reason I don't know why. And I always ask the cooks there, I'm like, why don't you guys cook pasta more? It's like it's such an easy thing to cook. You just throw it in the water. Everybody loves pasta. It's like once in a blue moon I'll have pasta. So every time I come home, I want a big plate of spaghetti and meatballs and uh, bread and all the carbs I can possibly shove into my mouth, and just lay there on a still couch and just relax. That's the best when you can just relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so on a ship, you got, let's say there's 20 crew, 20, 23, whatever. The captain, does he get different food than you guys, or is it the same, exact same
All
food?
the same. All the same. It's that's but the one of the good things about a ship is with the food, everyone gets treated the same, which is nice. I mean, we all have our designated seating areas. Like officers sit at a different table than the unlicensed and everything like that. So it's chain of command still in there, but when it comes to the food that's being made, the officers never get made something more special, which is nice. I'm never like, damn, that food looks way better than what I got. It's always we're eating the same shit. So it's either good, we're all gonna enjoy it together, or we're gonna hate it together. So it's good.
Yeah. So that whole officers at a different table thing, is that some sort of unwritten rule thing, or is that just because that's their peers and that's who they want to hang out with?
No, they usually have designated seats. So like the captain has a
Oh.
seat. Yeah. The captain has
Oh.
a specific seat. You don't get caught sitting in that chair. That type of thing. If you're unlicensed, don't sit at that table during eating hours. It's just one of those things. The captain's never going to sit in another seat. He's always going to sit in his chair. So you better learn real quick what chair is his chair, and don't get caught sitting there. Because I've seen people sit in someone's chair before and they would get their ass chewed out for sure. For sure. And at the verge of almost getting fired. I've seen it before. So yeah,
Shit.
they take that shit seriously sometimes.
Man, better know your seat.
Yeah,
All
better.
right. All right, Dean Schrantz, man. I really appreciate you coming on. I kind of feel bad this is over already because I really enjoy having you on the show, man.
Thank you for having me. It was great talking to you. I hope this opens the eyes for a lot of people into the maritime industry and the merchant marine, because I think it's one of the most interesting but hidden industries out there. A lot of people don't even know it exists. So I hope this opens the eyes of many people.
I don't see why I wouldn't. I mean, if I wasn't old, I would do it.
It's never too late. It's never too late. I know people joining.
I will be injured within 15 minutes. I guarantee it. Really, he's up in his bunk again because he friggin' pulled his hammy. You know?
Copy that. I got you.
All right, D, man. Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it, dude.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.